Hi, everyone. This is the closing session of the International Online Conference on Women in Science, Technology, Engineering, Art, and Mathematics with the subtitle of Resilience, Sustainability, and Governance. Throughout the week, we had great participations from women of different countries, backgrounds, and professional experiences, ranging from academia, business, to public administration. These participations covered many of the factors and challenges that women face, the importance of gender diversity in governance and technological empowerment. In this last session, I'll address my own views on the subject. Some of the points that I will touch upon were also touched upon by different speakers. So let's begin. So this the main problem as I see it. And this reflects my own views on the issue. I am Pedro Gonçalves. I'm an associate professor at Lusophone University of Humanities and Technologies, a researcher in quantum technologies, machine learning, strategic studies, and intelligence and security studies. Why the subject of women in science, technology, engineering, art, and mathematics? So some of the participants have asked me this question: why you, being a man, had the idea of organizing this conference around this subject. In part, this presentation, this final closing session is aimed at replying to that question, because and it reflects my views on this subject and the main reasons for indeed considering this, for why do I consider that women in science, technology, engineering, art, and mathematics, the promotion of and the support to gender diversity in these areas is critical. So the key actually is in the subtitle: Resilience, Sustainability, and Governance. So the choice of this subtitle was a thought-out choice, and it reflects my own views on this subject. So, and the problem, and there are two main issues for me regarding the need for diversity in science, technology, engineering, art, and mathematics, diversity in general, and gender diversity specifically. And the first major issue is about the problem of the existential threats. So to face global existential threats and challenges such as global warming and climate change, pollution, loss of biodiversity, desertification, global pandemics, extreme scarcity coupled to digital abundance, and even a possible mass extinction, we need to foster diversity as a driver for good solutions. If we exclude talent, we are excluding our ability to innovate, to think outside the box, to find better solutions for extreme problems that we are facing as a species. And this is the first level and the first major reason for me to support and to consider that gender diversity in science, technology, engineering, art, and mathematics is critical. There is also a more specific reason for this subject, for the conference subject, I personally consider as another reason for supporting and for the urgency of diversity, including gender diversity in technology, specifically in technology in this case, which is artificial intelligence and 4.0 technologies. By 4.0 technologies, I mean here the fourth industrial revolution technologies. Let's look at why this link between AI, why would AI and concerns about AI be linked to the problem of diversity in technology. So let's look a bit at artificial intelligence. And to reply at this, to reply this question, I'll and establish this connection between the issue of diversity and gender diversity in science, technology, engineering, art, and mathematics, and the issue of artificial intelligence and the problems regarding artificial intelligence. We need to reflect a bit on artificial intelligence and also upon the fourth industrial revolution. So let's look at artificial intelligence from a fundamental standpoint, that is fundamental research in AI. AI, artificial intelligence, so AI is about studying intelligence and cognition within the paradigmatic framework of cybernetics and computer science, building artificial cognitive systems to better understand cognition. This is the main issue regarding a fundamental research in AI, to study cognition in artificial systems, using artificial systems to better understand cognition, at the same time to see how artificial systems can artificial cognitive systems can be built. And this is a major issue about AI as a fundamental research field. The other side of AI is applied artificial intelligence, which can be considered to be about programming cognition into computing systems for them to exhibit adaptive behavior that solves problems. So in the first level, in both levels, we have here the issue of cognition linked to computation. So a computational paradigm, a computational approach to cognition. Cognitive activity as a computing activity. Okay, so this is one of the main issues and one of the main levels about AI. But the difference between the fundamental research into AI around studying cognition using artificial systems, simulating cognition in artificial systems, or how to build artificial cognitive systems, that research into artificial cognition is about studying exactly that, cognition in artificial systems, using artificial systems to understand cognition. In applied AI, the issue is how to approach computationally useful, how to create tools that solve cognitive tasks. So there's a utility issue here, as if there's a functionality here. So in applied AI, the AI technologies are tools to solve problems, cognitive tools. So artificial cognitive systems that are used to solve problems, that are used as functional technologies for us to use. So that are developed as functional technologies for us to use. So they have this functional value. And and this is a major driver of the fourth industrial revolution, this applied AI. The fourth industrial revolution is driven by the merge of artificial intelligence technologies, so AI technologies, with the internet, including the Internet of Things. So our tech-mediated world is online and linked to a network of artificial cognitive systems. And AI is not only being used for physical automation, so for robotics and so on, and also for automating levels of the IoT, but also, and here when we consider IoT, the Internet of Things, with the merge of AI, we are talking about the artificial intelligence of things also, AI of T, so the artificial intelligence of things. And here we can consider networks of linked AIs that learn from each other and so on. But that's the technical side. The issue here about functionality, which is where we are led then to the issue, to the main issue of the need for diversity, is that AI is not only being used for physical automation, but also for cognitive automation, that is, replacing humans in cognitive tasks or being used as a cognitive aid to decision making. Okay, so that's the cognitive functionality of AI in cognitive task automation and decision making support. And here is the problem. And here is where diversity arises. The problem of diversity arises. So AI is when we speak of AI technologies, we are speaking of cognitive tools. But then comes the question, does the tool fulfill its purpose, or is the tool biased? And let's look at this news, which there are many examples of this, and the AI bias problem, by the way, is a major issue that is currently being researched within the community, within the AI and machine learning community. But the issue cannot be solved only looking at the technical side. We need to look at the cultural and social dimension of the problem. And let's see why. Let's look at this news from Reuters, which says that machine learning specialists from Amazon uncovered a big problem. This is from 2018. Their new recruiting engine did not like women. So what we see here is gender discrimination by a bot, by an artificial intelligence tool that discriminates women, that has a gender discrimination embedded into it. It's difficult to assume that that this was done on purpose. So we have here a problem. It was a surprise. They uncovered the problem. So they did not build into the AI on purpose that gender discrimination, but it still arose that gender discrimination. So this is a problem. Biased AI tools can amplify discrimination and can have behavior that discriminates, for instance, regarding ethnicity, concepts of race and gender, and can exhibit discriminating behaviors about these points. How does this arise? So let's think about machine learning. If you use machine learning technology, usually, for instance, neural network adapts its weights, and the algorithm, the learning algorithm itself, is the same. If we use a specific algorithm for learning, we can use it for different problems and apply it within a problem scope of application. For instance, if it's facial recognition, or if it, and so on. So we have an architecture, and it adapts, it optimizes. So where does the bias come from here? The bias, one of the major sources of bias here, is not exactly in the algorithm, but it's in the feature variables that are used, and the target, the relation between feature variables and target, especially in the choice of feature variables. Let me give an example. If you use for criminal profiling race, you are automatically introducing a potential racial bias as into the AI system. You are failing to address the actual social and criminological factors that can influence criminal behavior, and you are distorting this, including race, because it biases from the start, because race becomes a feature variable that is used, and even ethnicity, feature variables that are being introduced that the AI will learn in terms of pattern, but the correlation is not does not mean that being of a certain ethnicity makes you more criminal. That is a ridiculous statement. That is unscientific. There's no scientific grounds for it. There are conditions, even life conditions, even wealth, access to wealth, people that live in specific neighborhoods that and in certain with certain conditions that affect criminal behavior. But if you include race there, then you can bias the AI. And AI tools are being used for sentencing in courts. And here we have a bias, we can have a racial bias in courts due to AIs being used for sentencing in some countries, okay? But this is an example. Another example is the one that shown below, is about gender discrimination, where in principle, the problem may have been in the training data, in the way you define the feature variables that have, and the machine learning tool learned to discriminate against women. So the problem, the discrimination root is a social problem, a cultural problem, which is linked to biases in our own ways of approaching problems that are deeply ingrained social and cultural biases that influence how we define feature variables. This is one issue that needs to be addressed. So the problem of AI bias may have a social and cultural root that needs to be better understood. And here we need social sciences, and here we need interdisciplinarity. Okay, so this is the lack of diversity problem. So lack of ethnic, cultural, and gender diversity in tech is dangerous because the tool can become flawed in its programming and training process, incorporating dangerous biases. It also reduces creativity and innovativeness because you are excluding talent solely on the basis of gender, of ethnicity, country of origin, and this is a problem. Lack of disciplinary diversity is another issue. So given the power of these technologies, given the way in which they are interfacing with society, interdisciplinarity is needed in tech because over specialization, especially in technical fields, leads to a same worldview and problem-solving approaches, which makes it more difficult to think outside the box and spot problems. So we need interdisciplinarity to leverage, we need to leverage interdisciplinarity in order to be able to produce better solutions, because some of these solutions impact society and they need to consider society into these solutions and the consequences of these tools. If they are to be functional, if they are to fulfill their goal, we need to consider this, and we need to take society into consideration. And this is an issue about diversity in tech that needs to be considered. So lack of diversity problem. When we look at here regarding gender diversity, we also see within gender diversity, racial and ethnic diversity problems and racial and ethnic discrimination within the tech world. And we see this in a few sources. If you look online, you can find examples of this. For instance, there's this from this quote that I found online that from a study done around women in tech. And the study found that Black and Hispanic women who majored in computer science or engineering were less likely to be hired into a tech role than their white counterparts. And here this statement is problematic also in the way it's built. So if we look at Hispanic women, were from Europe or Latin America. And even in Latin America, many Hispanic women are white, are Caucasian. So here is a discrimination regarding country of origin, ethnic discrimination and country of origin discrimination. So if you have a Spanish name, or even perhaps a Portuguese name, not Hispanic, but from Latin Europe or Latin America, in this case Brazil, yeah, that would be a Portuguese name, not Hispanic, okay? But if you have a Latin name, perhaps you'll have a greater difficulty and you're a woman, you have a greater difficulty in getting a job in tech than if you do not have, and even if you are Caucasian and are Hispanic or and are Hispanic, in this case it references Hispanic, you will have greater difficulty in getting a job than if you're a woman that do not have a Hispanic name. And the same, and we have their racial profile, racial discrimination also for Black women. And there's also reports, if you search enough, you find reports that, for instance, African-American women have a greater, women have to, in general, feel in tech, feel that they have to work harder than men to prove their worth. But African-American women feel that they have to work harder even than non-African-American women and than Caucasian women to prove their worth in tech. So this is a problem of discrimination and that exacerbates even more the lack of diversity. Hiring biased demographics can also spill over to human resources tech at the level of recruiting engines. So we see this discrimination in the recruiting engine that discriminated against women. So this is a problem. This is a lack of diversity problem. And now let's look at a bit how women are represented in tech, taking into account major projections for evolution of technology. So this is the CyberState's 2021 projections for the period from 2020 to 2030, tech occupation employment projections. And if we expect in the US, so this is situated in the US, we expect, and it's expected to grow the tech sector twice the overall employment across the US economy during this period, 2020 to 2030. Some occupations are expected to grow 4 times to 5 times the national US rate. And the predicted leading occupation in terms of growth rate is cybersecurity, followed by data science. So we have here the projected growth rates in the report for 2020 to 2030. This is an economic intelligence report. And we see that cybersecurity comes first with 31%, followed by data scientists, 30% growth rate, and software developers is the third with 23% projected growth rate. Looking at leading information and communication technologies occupation categories in the US for 2020, we see that cybersecurity is the second largest and that data science is the smallest category. But we expect these categories to grow, both cybersecurity and data scientists. Let us then consider these 3 major growth rate areas. So cybersecurity, data science, software developing. Software development in terms of the projections for 2020, 2030, if we reflect a bit on this, and this is a reflection that comes from other sources and that considers how AI is developing. So thinking about how AI is developing, we now have AI applied to programming. So AI programmers. So AI-driven or automated software development is an issue. So software development can be expected to be impacted by AI programmers and programming automation. Even if a software developer is not replaced by an AI, the increased productivity of hybrid human AI teams in software development may reduce the employment growth rate in this field. But we can expect the field to continue to grow. But we have here the one issue in the near horizon about AI programming. And here the bias becomes, you can have compound biases. So the AI programmers have to be programmed. If there are biases in AI programmers, those biases can be translated into biases in the programs that these AI programs program. So in the software produced by AI programmers, if there is a bias in these AI programmers, in these programmer bots, we can, those biases can translate into biases in the software that is programmed by these bots. So this is an issue that we need to consider. Data science, regarding the other field, which is the second largest in terms of prediction of rise, can see some automation in the data retrieval, depending on the development of machine learning and data crunching automation. We will still probably see major growth in the field, however. So even with AI, we can see that data science is perhaps in some way, with current data that we have about the field, the intel is favorable. The intelligence that we can gather in terms of economic intelligence, business intelligence, is favorable in terms of foresight to a growth in this field, employment growth in this field, a large employment growth in this field, even with AI solutions integrated in them. Cybersecurity is different from these other two, because cybersecurity is increasingly interdisciplinary in terms of demands. It's not just about the technical solutions. We have, and we'll see that in a second. So cybersecurity research is a major area in ICT development, but also in quantum information and communication technologies development, and quantum cybersecurity is in the near horizon also. So cybersecurity. Cybersecurity is increasingly interdisciplinary. Why? Because we are facing a new strategic environment, which is the hybrid threat environment. Hybrid warfare is a new major paradigm that is fought with strong expression in cyberspace. And this has not become, and the cybersecurity currently, corporate state cybersecurity, is not just about data protection and systems disruption, it's also about protecting organizations against cyber psychological operations. And cyber psychological operations are about content, are about cultural weaponization of cyberspace. Cybersecurity people will be needed independently of the level of AI integration into computing, and will be even more necessary as AI is integrated into organizations. So cybersecurity is highly interdisciplinary. You need strategic studies. You need besides strategic studies, intelligence studies. You need also even digital anthropology to address this, especially the cyber psychological operations that can use social media to target any organization, be it a state, public administration, or even corporations, banking, so on, can be targeted by cyber psychological operations. So quantum cybersecurity is another issue, which is just around the corner. And we already have reflections, for instance, from the World Economic Forum on a possibility of a global digital pandemics, a cyber attack with COVID-like characteristics that, with the development of the fourth industrial revolution and the deepening of the interconnecting with AI and the AI of things and the Internet of Things, in greater interconnectedness of this can lead to a major economic disruption, global economic disruption, akin to that which was produced by the COVID, or even deeper than the COVID crisis in terms of economic impact and financial impact. This is reflected upon in a recent video from the World Economic Forum, which is quoted here. So let's look at how the percentage of women in 2020 in the US, according to the Economic Intelligence Report for the cyber states, that we've been analyzing, and consider the percentage of women in different employment categories in information and communication technologies. And we see that data science is almost parity in terms of between male and female employment. So you see that 46% of occupation of women penetration in this field. So this is good in terms of data science, in terms of growth, that there is more gender equality in terms of hiring. Okay. Database administration and architects is the second largest with 37%, and systems analysts and engineers with 36%. Now, cybersecurity, which will be increasingly interdisciplinary, is now already critically interdisciplinary and will be increasingly more in the future. And the largest projected category in terms of growth in ICT, cybersecurity only has 21% of women penetration in the US, of percentage of occupancy. So it's a very low percentage compared to data science, and there is no gender equality here in cybersecurity. And if we look at Dinah Davis, the quote from Dinah Davis in an interview, Dinah Davis is the creator of the Code Like a Girl initiative, and she says that historically cybersecurity in general is only 10% female. So this is a very low percentage of female presence in cybersecurity. If we look at the education side, we also see, for instance, in this survey by PwC on university students, we see a few interesting results. 3% of females say a career in technology is their first choice. Only 3% of young women consider this field as their first choice. 78% of students can't name a famous female working in technology. And there are women working in technology and even in the academia and in science, but they can't name a famous one. So there's this lack of influencers and lack of role models in this area. And this is one of the issues that is raised in different studies. 16% of females have had a career in technology suggested to them, 33% in the case of males. 5% of leadership positions in the technology sector are held by women. So what we need here to change things, we need mentorship opportunities. We need more women in tech as role models, speaking out, and as influencers. And we need the development of more women in tech empowerment and educational online platforms. So we need also a reinforcement of a career in tech, education, and stimulus for women. But this can only work with a massive tech sector reorganization. And let's look at some of the issues that need to change in the tech sector. So there's an urgent need of a planned organizational culture change, targeting the eradication of the bro culture. We also need corporate governance and leadership restructuring with increase in governance and leadership diversity. We need equal wage and incentive opportunities and the creation of more diverse work teams, fostering innovation and creativity sustained by the diverse groups. We also need the implementation of flexible work schedules and equal maternity and paternity leaves. So, and looking to conclude, looking at tech, we can ask the question, does tech connect or divide us? And when we look at the current AI-managed internet, it can help to connect, and it can help sustainable solutions, and it can help inclusion. But it also leads to echo chambers that can tribalize at the digital level human communities, so that the connections are made to those that think the same as us, reducing reflexive ability, reducing diversity, reducing the ability to question one's own assumptions, the ability to grow and evolve, because we don't see diversity of thought, diversity of communication. We only listen to those that are similar to us. So these AI-driven echo chambers on social media can be exploited. Influencer financing and engineering, AI-driven echo chambers on social media and troll bots can be employed in the context of cyber psychological operations, or PSYOPs with the C, to increase divisiveness rather than inclusion, in order to weaken a country from the inside, fostering internal, ethnic, social, and cultural tensions, hindering the resilience and sustainability of a country's governance. So this is a major issue. But the problem is not just the fact that it's easily exploited. The AI embedded into social media is easily exploitable by cyber psychological operations to produce, to engineering echo chambers and exploiting echo chambers. And it's relatively easy to do this, to exploit echo chambers. But even if there was no and both by state and non-state actors, okay? But even if state and non-state actors are not exploiting these AI-driven echo chambers, the simple fact that they are there is also already dividing us, is already divisive, because the AI is filtering what you see in terms of what you like to see, how you think about the subject. It's feeding back your own views on the subject, and you aren't getting diversity. You are getting those that think like you. You are becoming more and more similar to a controllable digital tribe. And this is a problem, because it reduces diversity of thought, reduces reflexive ability. One does not question oneself. You need to look for other views than your own. You need to expand. And this, at a social level, leads to a tribalization of the social fabric. And in this, the same technology that can be used to connect is dividing. Perhaps art can be a solution here in terms of connection, because it can foster diversity and reflexive thinking. And it's a possibility, because you can embed diversity into an artwork, diversity of perspectives, any kind of artwork, even online stories, online novels, and so on. Anything, any artistic expression can produce can be used to as a way to, using multimedia now, and even virtual spaces can be used to foster diversity and inclusion, even fostering cultural diversity and expression. But the main problem is that if the AI, this AI-driven echo chamber process is not reviewed, is not addressed to the simple fact that AI are automatically producing echo chambers is a problem, and we need to review this already from the technological side. And big tech should address this, reduce the echo chamber effect from their AI AI systems that manage social media. Social media companies should address this. So the main problem, they should approach their social media in terms of diversity of perspectives and connection and cultural and consider how to design these platforms to foster diversity of thinking, reflexive thinking. The main problem here is that resilience is reduced if there is this level of divisiveness. So resilience, sustainability, and governance, and with the spread of social, political, economic, biological, ecological, and climate disruption factors, we will face challenges on a global scale compared to which COVID-19 pandemic can be looked at as just a small disruption. And without fostering and leveraging diversity, we will not be able to face these challenges. And the collapse can happen very quickly, and our hyper-technological framework can lead to a false sense of security. And this is the main points and the main reason for the root for the idea to the conference itself, and the main reason for the organization of this conference is linked to these problems. So thank you for listening. Oops. Thank you for listening. And all the recordings of these participations will be made available at the conference YouTube playlist, and you can watch it anytime. It will be divulged on social media, and also the conference website will be updated with the different participations, with the corresponding videos and bios of each participant, which I encourage you to watch. So thank you very much. Hope you liked it, and see you online.